Started. So I'm really excited today. I'm speaking with Johan Schleis. He is a saddle maker and also an educator and an author. So we're going to talk to him a bit about the importance of saddle fit for horses. So welcome, Johan. Thank you so much for being here today.
Yes, thank you very much for having me on your channel.
Oh, you're very welcome. So why don't you just get started? For our viewers that don't know about you, just tell us a little bit about your background and what got you interested in saddles.
Well, that was more like a fluke. I grew up in Buenos Aires, born in Germany. My dad taught physics and math all over the world in different German schools. And then when we lived in Buenos Aires, I just totally fall in love with horses. All what I want to do is become a rider. And then when we moved back to Germany, I had a very, very good neighbor. So he had a lot of good horses and he sponsored me. And I had a chance to actually represent Germany as a junior rider, as 3-day event riding. And while my passion was what my uncle used to do, being a doctor, says, "Oh, I love anatomy, physiology, and I really want to help people." And the problem was I was way too often in the barn. So I didn't pay enough attention to the school. I had this vision, but I didn't know that you really have to be smart and be in school for that as well. So um, yeah, and my dad says, "Oh, you can't be in the barn all the time. You got to do something. So why don't you do an apprenticeship?" And I didn't like anything else. Saddlery came part of it, just totally why I thought, well, the best part would be if I could fix my own tack, because every time the saddle was gone, I couldn't ride. So I loved it so much. And when I asked all these questions, often the doctor said, or the master saddler said, "You're asking a lot of questions." Says, "Yeah, my dad told me the person who knows the how will always follow the person who knows the why. And if you don't know the why, ask the question. Why do we do it like this? You know what? You're really nosy. Just do it the way we done it for hundreds and hundreds of years." Okay, off I went. So I had a lot of students, and I also had people who sponsored me with saddles. And a couple of things started to really I really questioned. And for example, I said, how come so many of my students were complaining about how the saddle feels to them? So I went into their saddle, rode, and I said, "Oh, come on, you're making it up. Come on, just try a little harder." So that always questioned because I couldn't help them what they felt. And as I said, the majority of my students were women or girls. And I don't feel in the saddle what a woman feels in the saddle. As a matter of fact, no man feels what a woman feels in the saddle. So I push that to the side with the saying, "Oh, they just have to try harder." So and then comes the saddlery, and I also ask my saddle maker or my master saddler, "On my horse, I feel this way, and it doesn't go properly. Does that have anything to do with the saddle?" "No, just make the saddle correct and then just smack them going forward." Okay. So over the years later on, um, I met so many veterinarians and professors just like you. I traveled the world all the time. Now I finally retired and I have an online program with Saddle Fit for Life. And we developed saddles what you can actually fit long distance. People say, "How is that possible?" It's like a farrier shoeing a horse long distance. And I like to compare saddle fitting or um, um, sizing, we also like to say to it, to shoeing, because you need to see how the horses move and you need to adapt the horses, whatever work they do. If there are reiners, are there are event horses, are there pleasure horses, race horses, right? So you need to see them, what their movement is and how they're going under the saddle. So before I left the idea of not going the academic route, I noticed in my apprenticeship that often my master saddler had incredible tips how to make a saddle, but nobody could help me how to answer the problems from the riders. And the same, how to answer the problems, how it fits on the horse. And after 3 years, you do your apprenticeship, then you go at least 5 more years as a journeyman before you apply to you become a master in Germany. Every country is a little different. So I did my master's, and then at the whole time, nobody talks about human or horse anatomy. Only when I immigrated to Canada after I married a Canadian, and I made the saddles for the Canadian team and the US team back then, the one Canadian customer said to me, "You come and go with me to my gynecologist." I says, "No, I don't want to go to your gynecologist." But he says, you know, the saddles are really, really bad for my health. So I really, back then, researched a lot, and that was the early 90s. And I had actually the professionals come to my little workshop. So this gynecologist came to me with two plastic pelvises, and he showed me something I will never, never forget. Now, as a saddle maker, when I make a seat, I sit in it. Oh, that feels great. And then I made myself a saddle. Oh my God, that feels so good. And then when I married my wife, I says, "Look, my new saddle. Sit on it." It says, "Oh, beautiful, nice soft leather." Oh, I don't like it. After the fifth saddle, I thought I married the wrong woman because she kept complaining how it felt. And then I really realized when he showed me the differences, I'm still here, you know. So yes, there are 4 different shapes of female pelvises, but if we just look at a pelvis, what can bear children, birth channel, and one without it. We all learned that in grade 7 or whatever. So I'm not talking about the birth channel here. I'm talking about the formation of the pubic symphysis and the pubic bones, seat bone distance, tailbone, and the location of the hip socket, and especially how this opening relates when a male sits on the horse. This has got to be level. We cannot sit like we're sitting on a toilet or on the chair. Okay, we got to sit balanced so we can pivot with the pelvis. Now, if I look at that, and this is the first he said to me, you know, in general, the ladies have a little bit more lordosis, right? A little bit more curve in the lower back. You still have to have that level. But the pubic branches are flat and then go up. Right here is where the underwear line from the rider goes through. Click. Finally, somebody who answered me the question when my student says, "Oh, that saddle rubs my underwear." I sat on that saddle. I made all kinds of funny movement. I could never feel the underwear. Well, because my pubic symphysis or my pubic branches go straight up. We don't have that doop doop. So not only that was a big kicker, they also said, well, there is a much shorter tailbone, and due to the fact that there's lower, more curvature in the lower back, this is shorter. The butt cheeks are a little bit further away from the horse's back, like the male rider. Now, what has to do the butt cheeks with saddle fitting or with riding? Well, we always learned that the most important aid in riding is not your spur, your whip, your voice, your hands, it's your seat. How you implement the weight to the horse and where you sit. So with the lower pubic symphysis, you will always hit the withers. It's a given, right? Or you sit further back where no bareback rider wants to sit because it's very too bouncy. So not only do we have the issue with how this is built by nature, we also have a hip socket which sits a little bit more forward, and we don't have, I call it for simplicity, this little shelf. So if I now remember what I did to my riding students, I grab their thighs, move their back, pull the muscle here, sit them in the saddle. Let's go. All right. She did 1, 2, 3 steps and says, "Oh no, my hip is cramping." So lifted up the leg, put the leg forward, turned the toes out, and I go, "Oh my God, get off the horse. Let me show you how to do it." Every beginner guy has automatic that, like in the old days, the masters called that seat a standing seat because you're sitting on the horse the way you stand. If your legs are not underneath you, you fall on your nose, on your butt. So the difference with the horse, there's walk, there's trot, and there's canter. So if I have a moving platform underneath my butt, it's even more so important that I can balance this with this pivot action. But if I'm sitting like this, because I get hit here, that's a big problem. So it was not until 1996, due to the gynecologist and the Canadian dressage team rider, for us to change something what hasn't done for thousands of years, what I sold later on to the bicycle company. That's what I made my money, where I then caught open an academy to share what I learned the hard way. So here's the first part, very easy to show. You see this little roof, ridge.
Bridge, yeah.
And I asked my master saddler, why do we need to form a ridge in the seat? He looked at me, man, you ask a lot of questions. You're really the dumbest saddle maker I ever had. I said, well, my daddy taught me the person knows the how will always follow the person knows the why. I want to know why I make this like this. Says, you're right? Yes, I'm a rider. Well, do you want to fall on your parts? No. Well, we're making it so you're sitting on a rooftop, so your parts will always be pushed to the left or right. Man, did I feel stupid. Well, of course, right? No guy wants to hit themselves. But on the other side, no woman wants to sit on a rooftop. That's ridiculous. But do you think I clicked at that stage? No. I made over 8 years saddle until this Canadian dressage team rider brought the gynecologist to me and says, let me see if I have that book here. So, oh, no, I don't have it. It's actually a book written by Dr. James Warson, The Rider's Pain-Free Back. And when I heard from the gynecologist, and then from Dr. James Warson, I read in the book, that the 3 most damaging part for riders, for female riders, are chronic bladder and kidney infection. I thought there's no way. Second, L4, L5, many top riders have lots of disc issues, if not operations. And last not least, hip and knee pain. But the way they explained it to me is very logic. Now, not because I make saddles or because my passion is anatomy and physiology or because I taught so many times. You know what a chicken wishbone is, right? Mm-hmm. So when you grab it, eventually it pops.
Yes.
And when we describe a guy, hips, legs. If you describe a girl's waist, hips, and then they come in. So the thigh, the neck of your thigh bone, your lower back, the pelvis, all that, the muscular structure in your upper inner thigh, we got space there. Not to be rude on your channel, but to have space for our stuff, right? Where a woman can't put her stuff left or right. Her parts are inside, and her muscles are closer together in the upper inner thigh. So the first thing, what he said, if you want to give these ladies in your saddles severe seat problems, such as hip and knee pain, just keep it wide in the part, what we call the twist. That's where your thigh would be. This would be where your crotch be. Okay. And that doesn't matter if there goes my horse. Doesn't matter if you talk about Western saddle or English saddle, it's the same thing because you sit astride over the horse. Last time we asked ladies was when we made side saddles, because back in the old days, it was not classy for you to have a pants on and sit astride over an animal. So yes, there's the occasional country where people were always riding women, but he explained it to me in the manner which makes a lot of sense. There is no horse what has a smaller rib cage than a human's hips, or the other way around. The hips are always smaller, no matter how big the person is, man or female, than the horse's rib cage. And we all have sat maybe on something very round, a horse or a barrel of oil. So when you sit on the barrel, you turn your knees out and your toes out because you feel like, wow, your leg gets popped apart. So he said to me, the very first part, no matter how fancy the underwear is you're selling your students or the riders, you got to take the invasive force in the crotch. You got to take that off. And you got to make it a little narrower between the upper and inner thigh. And last not least, a rider needs to sit on the seat bones. And even poor ladies who have very narrow hips, in other words, that neck of the femur is smaller, that lady still has a birth channel. Sometimes a little smaller, but in general, wider than a man. So I looked at him and says, how should we do it? He says, well, just like my body does with his teeth. What does he do with his teeth? Take an imprint. like, how do you take an imprint of a butt? So how does that work? I said, you will figure out. And sure enough, we did it. So let me show you how here. I created a saddle what is out of foam, and we must have over 115 different seat cars over the last 45 years. I only did that back then because I still was very stubborn. Maybe it's the German in me or it's the male in me, but it was always done like this. Women need to try harder, blah, 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 right? So I still didn't get the wishbone analogy. I still didn't get why women have problems in their underwear region. So the majority of the guys sits like a V, okay? The deepest point is in the middle towards the back, and the seat bones are very narrow. So it's probably not coming up very good in this video here, but I'm going to turn this around. So this is sitting on a saddle stand. And in that saddle stand, I either have a Western tree with lots of foam and a stretchy material like the Lululemon pants are, right? So you sit there with very stretchy material, and it goes relatively fast. 15 minutes is done. The first difference you see, there is an impact in the front. So it's a flat spot, and the lowest point is actually here where your seat bone sits first, your pubic symphysis sits first. So the seat bones are much further apart, much further forward, and this is filled in much more. Why? Ladies don't have a long tailbone. Full stop. Yes, there is a girl who may have a straight leg, but if we want to generalize, we can say the majority ladies have a little bit more lordosis. Now, when I looked at these, it's not just one. Oh, you know what? She is really unusual. Or that person is unusual. We all like to believe that, and we are. But when you see we call it the butt museum, where all these cars are, you walk in, you don't even have to know anything about anatomy. You don't have to be a rider. You just say, oh, I can identify two shapes. One is like this, and the other one is like that. So why would I put that invasive area in the front? So a typical Western or English saddle for a lady, very narrow through here, and it has that crotch cut out. Now, if a guy sits on that saddle, we feel there's a lot of space between our upper and the thigh, like a little gap, and we ride 4 or 5 step, and we lean back like ladies do in the male saddles because our parts don't get shifted left or right. We will fall on top. That's no guy would ride. And of course, the seat bones are wider, so therefore the back is wider. So there's 9 distinct differences. And I always say to people, just focus on the 3. Okay? And we're now in the part where there's all this talk about pronouns, how you like to be addressed. We're also in the part where people maybe have sex change. But until you change your skeleton, your lower back, your pelvis, your femur, and do a muscle reconstruction on your thigh, those 3 parts, actually 2 parts stay the same. So all where I'm going with this is when I hear this explained to me from educated medical doctors, one is a rider, the other one is not a rider. And the writer who wrote this book, Dr. James Watson, puts it so easy down that I thought it was really beautiful. And then I thought, as a saddle maker, do I go traditional and service, what is it, 2% of the English world is men, 98% of the riders are women. Western, 75% of the riders are women. It has such a change, which has never been there for thousands of years. So same with the Western saddle, which is much easier because you just undo the conchos, you flip it up, and you can change the ground seat. So let's say you have a couple coming to your place and they love your place and they're riding at your place. They have 1 horse, 1 saddle. They're the same height. Could ride the same size. The difference in how the horse goes and how the rider sits, it's day and night by changing the right ground seat. No man in this world would ride Western with lady jeans or lady underwear. No way. So there's this old saying, I didn't know that. I know I can't perceive a work on an animal or on a human do operation, even though my passion would be a shero, right? But I can't do that. I haven't learned that. I know I can make beautiful saddles, but I didn't know that. So, and the same thing applies to the horse. Now, for the horse, it's easy. Or do you know what the most funny part is?
What?
All I have told by veterinarian and medical doctors has been all been done in 1857 by U.S. Colonel called Colonel McClellan. He designed a saddle, not because the majority of the rider were there, but when a soldier sits in the saddle, literally 8 to 14 hours a day, the pressure on his nether region is over the time so much that it hurts that blood vessel. And no matter how much Viagra they didn't have back then, but would use, it wouldn't function anymore. So they just say, why do we need that? Why don't we just cut that whole area out? Right? And that saddle was still used in the First and Second World War. So where I'm going with this is I changed my entire saddle making. I do it now for either the male pelvis or female pelvis. And I also have learned so much from body workers as well as veterinarians who also started to take acupuncture, chiropractic. I mean, look at how far your industry got. So, and most of the time you don't want to be called, oh, here comes the vet again, very expensive. And you have all this other stress. And I think the way you describe it, the joy it got you, we all go through these turmoils by sharing your knowledge through the world. You can kind of see, I know you think I'm a little bit, ooh, but I see the aura around you. You can see the happiness around you because we like sharing. And that's when I became from a saddle maker to an educator, and together with the German National Riding School, we came up with two new professionals. One called the equine ergonomist. Ergonomist comes from the Greek word, three-dimensional. Equine is a horse. And the second one is saddle ergonomist. So just like you can have an education after grade 8, grade 10, grade 13, and undergrad, master's, PhD, doctor, same thing in saddle fitting these days. And the easiest one is on the racetrack, because all you have to put on is a heart monitor and this stride tester. So when you look at certain points on a horse, we all seen it when you groom them on the neck and the lip quivers and they want to groom your back. And when somebody teaches me who does acupuncture, there's a bladder meridian point, and this particular one calls the lung BL13, the lung meridian point. Please, when you sell saddles or fit saddles, avoid that pressure. And I said, okay, foo. People always say I'm from Missouri, the show me state.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when you're as old as I am, you've seen it all the snake and poison salespeople. So I said, show me. Right? And he says, okay, here's a heart monitor. Watch this. Press here. So I press here, and he says, let me explain pressure. And the way he explained it was so beautiful. He says, have you ever squished a lemon? I says, yes, I have squished a lemon. To make lemon juice? Yes. A lot of pressure when you do it by hand. Yeah. Have you ever squished a grape? No. Go ahead and squish a grape. First time I did it, it would like explode in my face. And it wasn't as easy as I thought, but it was way easier than lemon pressure. Mm-hmm. So he says, I want you to do with one finger lemon pressure into the horse's back right here. Start gentle and then go. I had to push so hard that the horse almost moved away. Okay. Says, okay, now we do it again with a heart monitor. So we looked. The horse was annoyed because I came for the second time with my pokey finger. He looked around and says, what are you doing here? Next time I bite you, whatever. But the heart monitor stayed the same. He says, now, great pressure, just go here. So end of the mane, You went down 6 inches. I'm giving you a rough idea where it is. 1 inch forward, right? And then he said, press here, lemon pressure. And I watched it and I couldn't believe it. The pulse went up. What? Did it again. Then, of course, I did it with the saddle. Western English, racing doesn't matter. Now, can you imagine you have a lot of money on the racetrack and you own a lot of racing horses? And I can show you that the heart rate is lower in this saddle and the stride is longer. And when you get disqualified in Kentucky because at finishing line your horse went this way, you didn't hold the line, you're really mad. You just lost your $1.5 million purse. So if I can show you, Western saddles and Army saddles for centuries always stayed away of the spine. Why do you have to put your saddle on the spine? Well, the jockey doesn't sit, they only stand. In the race for 60 seconds, 90 seconds, 45 seconds. But what you do during the training? Do they ride longer? Yeah. And I made money as a little kid on the track. And I've been around South Africa, United Emirates, anywhere. And guess what they have? Not the most talented riders and light riders doing their galloping or walking. And they just sit like a potato sack on the spine, on those little babies who are just 15 months, 2 years old. Ridiculous. That's a whole nother story.
It is, yeah.
So, yeah, and that's how, it's a long introduction. I'm so sorry, but I'm so passionate about it that I really want to share that it's insane how all our ancestors did it because they knew it. Because, again, people might not want to hear what I'm saying now, but horses were also food back in the old days, not just padding and jumping a little bit trail riding, you know. So the knowledge from the riders back then about horses was way higher because city folk didn't decide, oh, let's have a riding lessons. They just simply couldn't afford it back in, we go back 100, 200 years ago. So now modern medicine for the male, for the rider from the medical side and modern medicine for the veterinarian side have proven, gee, these old masters knew what they did. Not my master. He just said, shut up and do it like I said. I mean, I love him and he taught me a lot of things, but there is such a difference. And same in your field.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's true. A lot of people are very set in their ways. So you really have to be open-minded and look at things, as we like to say, from a holistic perspective and look at all aspects of it. But yeah, that's a really fascinating story, how you got into that. It's funny how life sometimes pushes us in a direction that we're not expecting, but you realize that was your purpose. That's what you're supposed to be doing.
100%.
So if somebody wants to purchase a saddle from you, what is the process then? So they contact you, and then how do you decide which shape would be fitted best for them and their horse?
Mm-hmm. I'm going to answer this question a little bit convoluted because I have another saying I live by. People don't care what you know, so long they know why you do what you do. Why do I like to sell a saddle? Yes, it's an income. Yes, it's my living. But the real purpose is I want to make a difference to the horse's life. The rider can say, I don't like the color. I don't like the feel. I don't like the needle. Oh, this over guy. I done it. I've been there. I had people sponsored, right? So I told them what I don't like. But who's speaking up for the horse? Yes, we now have the ethogram. Yes, we have the pain scale. Yes, we have all kinds of things. What makes it easier? We have way more body workers today. But how do I sell one person if I want to be totally money driven, 25 saddles? Or if it's not so much money, if it's because I want to stop losing their best friend, because that happened to me. I lost my best friend. We were placed for LA 1984, and we could not figure out, and it's so stupid because in the jumping saddle he was fine, but that one dressage saddle, where it was my favorite, I was sponsored with this, what everybody else said, yay, I finally ranked the lead to have these top saddles sponsored, and he was clearly miserable in it. So I crippled my own horse, what was only proven in 1996 in Utrecht at the university. where they had the horse on the treadmill and modern technology.
Mm-hmm.
So to your question, I only sell saddles where they can be serviced, because horses, you know it, are not carousel wooden stick horses what go around the merry-go-round. They are living beings. What changes through age, nutrition. As a matter of fact, there are 8 factors. So if I buy a saddle for $500, for $5,000, or some go up to $15,000, it doesn't matter. The horse doesn't care how much dollars you spend. They all of a sudden say, oh, something is hurting. I just give you one example of the lung meridian point, 1 of 14 on each side. So I want to offer a service to people around the world if there is a service person around. So in other words, if there's people who can service it. Right? What good does it do you buy a horse with a shot because he needs shoes for whatever reason, but where you live, there is no farriers? No, you rip the shoes off, and now you have shitty soil, bad nutrition, the hoof itself needs a lot of help because of ABC. What good does that help you now that you have that horse, right? So there's 2 ways. If you really live in the remote jungle in Brazil, or in an area, I used to say Alaska, but we have lots of people there who done this, because we teach as people like Sharon Cooper and other companies, saddle companies. My good friend who is a big shot here in Toronto, he's a PhD, and he does a lot of research. He has a little company on the side and says, why do you teach your competition? I says, because I can't ever fulfill my calling and help as many horses if I don't teach what I learned over the last 45 years. So it went full circle, because sometimes they say, oh, you know what, we can help you, but why don't you call them? And I'm a big believer if professionals work together. And it worked wonderful. So what do you have to do to get a saddle from us? First thing, contact us or just Schlese. And on our website, you have 2 options. You can have somebody come out to you and they measure you and they give you all the options, because we like to fit the back of the horse, the bottom of the horse, and the wallet size of the rider. Number 2, if you are in an area where you so remote and you don't have somebody, we actually have what is called long distance fitting. So what do you require? You require equipment such a phone, what can take videos. That phone, lots of, up to 80% of the phones now have a Face ID. It's free. You can hold that phone 3 feet above the horse's back. It stops vibrating and it takes a 3-dimensional picture.
Oh,
That cool. You send this, and then you can see, you can turn it on the screen, you can change it, and you can see it. And the way that company who developed that app makes the money. So now if a saddle maker or a saddle fitter wants to make money and fits or sells the saddle, we pay for the diagram. So this is literally what is on your phone, and then you spin it around, you see it from the top, from the back. A lot of body workers like it, or trainers like it, because you can see the difference in the musculature. And sometimes you have horses what are super uneven. Now you see a lot of horses, but the customer, not necessarily, right? So the customer sees one horse. What do you mean the horse is uneven? Well, I need to do a little bit job, you know. So there's a lot of horses, you know, if it's because they're trained only on one side on the track, lots of horses buy horses on the track. So with this 3-dimensional measurements, which is for free, you can actually see how your work as a physiotherapist, chiropractor, even shoer actually benefits from it. Okay, you can see a difference. You can show it to customer. Nothing is more accurate like this. And then, of course, you get the measurements of the horse, and you send measurements. Sorry, you send a video how you ride. So then you get a saddle. You are out of the bed. You say, "Oh, I'm so happy." So now what? The horse changed.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm stuck. Now I got another saddle. And Dr. Joyce Harmon was the first veterinarian who was a chiropractor and acupuncturist who wrote a book in 2004, The Pain-Free Back for the Horses, right? Saddle fitting book. And there she writes that horses' measurements you can see then change sometimes in dramatic cases in 4 weeks. No, that's ludicrous. I can't fit my saddle every 4 weeks. So the industry, and not just us, many companies, changed so the customer now has an option to change. So now, what do we need? If I buy a helmet, I need to tell them from here to here, that's the length. Length is important. So we go with the same way they done it with the McClellan saddle. Look at the mane and look at this, they call it the ring of light, or they call it the rain line. I have a great picture here. It's here you're looking from the back. I mean, for you, you know what that is. You're looking from the croup forward to the horse here, so you see the lumbar. But the distance from the lumbar to the ribs where the saddle should sit, it's huge. It's a big drop off here. It's massive. So no saddle should sit there. And then the people say, yeah, but the Western saddle is long. A Western saddle is long and more weight-bearing surface, absolutely correct. But the front flare and the back flare has only one purpose, to carry the guns, the weight, the tent, whatever. But they're not meant to put the force directly underneath. So we call it the front flare or the back flare, whatever. So when you have all this beautiful research, you know, there's another beautiful article, 2019, from the University of Zurich. You know, he published how the modern English trees crippling our horses from today, because they make these rails narrow and narrow and narrow, right? So when the rails become narrow on the Western saddle, look how nice and wide they are. I mean, they are huge, how wide they are compared to these narrow wooden trees. So this is where it becomes tricky, right? Because we want it narrow for the ladies, but we don't want it narrow for the horse. When you have these narrow rails, how you do it? And the way it's been done, like it's always been done. You make the top for the rider, the bottom for the horse. So you can have actually what they call a binate tree, a narrow twist for the rider and a wide twist for the horse. That's a whole new topic, but you can see every horse when it sweats. This is a line every beginner, any guy or girl can see when the horse sweats, because due to the fact how the hairline goes, that's where it runs down. So they call it the rain line. So in the Western saddle, if the flare is not high enough, in the cantering, it pushes the saddle and rubs it against the cartilage in the shoulder and the lung meridian point. So now they wonder, oh my God, my saddle doesn't fit. So what if I would tell you that saddles now are able to, long distance or on site, be fitted where you can change the rails, the bars on the saddle, 7 different ways. In the width of the rail, the angle of the rail, the flare of the front, the flare in the back, the rocker, and the twist of the bar. Right, so if the rider has that potential, my competition says, you're destroying the market. Now they don't buy a saddle. Well, that's true, but how often can you really buy a saddle? So what do? I buy pads. So I buy all these expensive pads. So if I have a child what is growing, and I give him another pair of socks because he's now 13, a couple of years ago he was 11, put a couple of socks on it. Right?
Not to fix the problem.
I mean, you know it. You know that the skeleton is not fully mature until they're 6 years old. You know that, but not many customers. They wait until they're 3, if they wait until they're 3. Oh, I get him a saddle when he's fully matured. Are you joking me? You're buying a pair of shoes for your kids when they're grown? Especially in the developmental stage, you need to have it. And English saddles, you've probably seen this before. They have these metal plates where you can change them. The problem with this is they're poking forward and they're sitting exactly where the lung meridian point is. And sometimes you have a horse that has a chest like that, wide shoulders, right? But the rib cage, it's not like flat. It is wide and then it comes out. So if I buy a helmet what fits me in the length from here to here, that's great. If it's too narrow, it sits way on top. If it's too wide, my helmet is here. So if a helmet what fits here, but the side flares out, if I ride sitting trot or riding through the forest, now my helmet sits this way, I look like a goof. So the side has to fit. So this helmet is too narrow in the width, and it doesn't sit on the side. So it slides until it gets. So as you know, and most of your students most likely, horses don't have a collarbone. And the change, and especially when you have that app, the change in the shoulder width and shoulder angle, and it's not always symmetric. Okay. I'm a competitive ballroom dancer, and the difference in my left to right leg is unbelievable. And I do physical therapy, and I do have a personal trainer, and my lunge on the right leg looks pathetic compared to the left. That's normal. I'm not trying to excuse my weakness here, but we all call it favorite side, weak side, blah, blah, blah. The animal is not a machine. And if I quote Dr. Kerry Whichway, his low and high heel syndrome, or Dr. Gonzalez, Tony Gonzalez, who wrote the book 86, he was the third generation farrier, or Dr. Solange from Sao Paulo, how humans' feet can deform if you put feet in a too narrow shoebox. You see, my mom's generation, you see, all my aunts had this bunion because they all run around with narrow shoes after they have grown ladies' feet, right? So if we put a skeleton, what has no collarbone, in a tree, what is not fitting right in the width or the angle, then we have a problem. So now you have companies who give this in Western and in English, where the rider can change this plate, and you can see how this is interrupted there. Mm-hmm. And they went away from this and followed the Western theory. The Western theory is, why don't we put the fender, what we call stirrup leather in English, and put the weight where my hand is. It's still in the right spot, but it's attached here where the fender sits, rather than all on this metal plate, riveted on the metal where, push. So it takes a while for us humans to change because we don't like changes. Only babies who have wet pants like change. So now you can, on the horse, change the width and the angle. If a horse is bigger on one side, which accordingly to Dr. Joyce Harmon, 7 out of 10 bigger on the left, 2 out of 10 bigger on the right, 1 out of 10 is absolutely symmetric. So imagine you can do this, holding your phone in front of the horse while we talk, or one of my experts talks with you, no matter where you live. One more click. Yeah, that's good. Try it. You do this 3-4 times with us, and then you says, that's not rocket science. I can.
Yeah, that's awesome. So the average horse owner, in your opinion, could go ahead and make these changes.
You need a little hand holding, like the first time you rode a bicycle. I'm not saying you're gonna fall off and scruff your knees. I'm just saying it's a lot of taking in. But yes, that's what I'm saying. So
yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, and it really is truly amazing the difference, as you're saying, in the horse when they have a saddle that fits them correctly. And I think for me as well, growing up, and you have a lot of people that are set in their ways. They don't think about it. They have a certain saddle that feels good for them, or, it's a saddle that they've had for a long time. And they don't think about the impact that has on the horse when it's not fitting the horse correctly. And as you said, horses are dynamic and they're changing all the time. So obviously you need to change the saddle and the way it's fitting them. So tell me a little bit about the book that you wrote, because I think some of my students would be interested if they have not read it already. But tell us basically what you discuss in that book.
Okay, so as I told you already, my weakness was loving horses too much and being in the barn all the time. So I didn't pay too much time in school. So reading and writing was always difficult for me. And I said to my dad, someday I'm going to go and follow your footstep, which I became because I teach now at the University of Guelph. This is a course now. What is the only from 9 different saddle fitting school? Our saddle fitting school is the only one who has authorization from the Ontario Veterinary Medical Association. And vets, you have to put your CPDs, right? You have to get continuing education. If you take our course, the theory gives you 40 points and the practical gives you 110. No other education gives you 150 points, right? That's unbelievable, unheard of. So, yeah. But I got there, Audrey, because I said to my wife, how am I ever going to accomplish what I promised my dad, that I'm not only teach, but I'm also going to write a book? And he was laughing. I said, yeah, that'll be the day. And I says, you know what? I'm going to do that before I'm 50. Then he laughed even harder. So I thought, why can I not share everything I have? We have over 250,000 measurements around the world in any disciplines you can name. Why can I not share what my experience was, the people I met? And there's some people, right? I would say close to 24 people who I will never forget and never can thank them enough what they have taught me. And from those, I picked 6. And I says, do you mind write a chapter in my book? So what I have done, I wrote this big book, but there's a chapter from a vet, a chapter from a farrier, a chapter from a trainer, from a body worker, from a human physiotherapist. So it's not just what I pull out of my nose, but it's something what is based on science and not on opinions. People are saying to me, you know what I like about your book? There's a lot of books about saddle fitting, like belly button. It says, what? Like a belly button? Yeah, you know how everybody has a belly button? Everybody has an opinion. You can read all these different opinions, but you basically have these experts who, like you, want to be shown, and they're looking at data. Of course you can manipulate data. Of course you could have people who mess up completely. But if the intention is correct, and you look at the whole circle of influence to the horse, and people work together, then you can identify very quick. That's why they only launch the horse to the left and never to the right in vaulting. There's not one vaulting Olympic or local competition where the horse does the vaulting, the gymnastic on the horse to the right. Never. You know, so when I taught at the osteopath school in Europe, you know, people said, where's your appendix? I really had to think on the right. Well, hello, same like a horse. And do you walk like a camel? Does your horse walk out like a camel? No, they walk diagonal. So when you put all these things together, in my book, I wrote it because I wanted to, and I said to my professional, I said, write it as a 3-year-old reads it. Because I am a 3-year-old in reading. So I want to understand what you're saying. And because of the easy read and how everything comes together, you sit there actually and say, that actually makes sense. Ours is now in the 4th print. I forgot how many different languages. And it's used not as a textbook, but it's used as a book in veterinarian schools. And there's a lot of management for equine degrees now in various countries. You in Texas. I know you're in Florida, right?
In Florida, yeah.
So, yeah, so my book is all about, I wanted to tell, and this is, I dedicated to my horse because I lost him because of my ignorance. And I was just me. I was on TV. I had tons of students. I was sponsored, you know, and couldn't put the 2 and 2 together. Duh, it is the saddle. You know, when I met Dr. Adrian Harrison from the University of Denmark in Copenhagen, he told me, veterinarians were told until 1978, horses don't even have pain receptors. What? Says, yes. And I remember my vet says, well, I can give you a bute, right? Or stop riding for a couple of months. What? I have my big European competition. No. right? So if you ask the old people, or when I say old people, people out of my generation, and you ask them, what have you learned and studied about back pain?
Yeah, they didn't really
They
cover it.
didn't have MRI, ultrasound, and all the cool stuff you guys have now. And they didn't go holistic way, the way you go, or many people go, right? So that's why I dedicated to the book, because I had all the professionals. We were teacher family, so we weren't rich, but we had a lot of people who sponsored me. So that it was never a matter of not having money. And yet my horse, I tell you what, Audrey, that horse went everywhere, but he lost the light in his eye. No, he literally died. His soul disappeared. He just did it because he wanted to. And someday he couldn't do it anymore. Only to find out so many years later, I crippled my own horse. And I said to my daddy, I know what my calling is. Nobody should ever lose their best friend because you didn't know what you didn't know. And that's what this book is all about. Simple, straightforward, and it can work for professionals, no matter which one of the six you are, to say, that makes a lot of sense. And I had so many, many, many osteopaths and physios and vets and chiropractors. I need to keep the customer. If I constantly hunt to a new customer, it's not sustainable in my business. And I don't want people to say behind my back, super nice person, but their massage or their work or their chiropractic doesn't last. Of course it doesn't last if you put a torture device on it. What hurts them again? And I'm going to go this way again. It's so simple because the saddle is the easiest one, the interface between two beings to identify. And that's what we do. That's why we have kindergarten courses all the way to PhD courses in our Saddle Fit for Life Academy. I have also a company like this who manufactures and sells saddles. And I also teach this to other saddle companies, not to increase my competition, as I said, but to fulfill my calling. All right, so how can we help these horses if I'm like stubborn, keep all my information here?
Yeah,
Right,
no,
so
I totally agree. That's why I put my courses online almost 10 years ago, because I feel like the more people you can reach with your knowledge, the more animals you can help. So it definitely you need to spread that knowledge and inform as many people as you can.
and
So
look what it did for you. You
yeah,
know,
yeah. I mean,
look
it,
how
it
it got you
definitely
out of
it,
this funk and how you feel because
yeah.
you're reaching more horses, right?
Definitely, definitely. It feels really good knowing that it's out there and there's so many more animals, and not just horses, because we teach small animal body work too, but just so many more animals in general benefiting from the knowledge. So that's definitely very, very rewarding. And I do have a link actually for your program in my equine massage course, because we do talk a little bit about saddle fit in there, because as you mentioned, it's so important. And if you're going out and massaging horses and you're not addressing the saddle, I mean, as you mentioned, it's not going to stick, whatever you're doing. But just as a reminder right now, tell people, how can they find you if they want to find your program, if they want to find your book. um, should they just go to your website?
Yeah. So if you look at for a product to purchase, then look at saddlefitforwomen.com or just Schleese, SCHLEESE.com. If you say, gee, I really would like to incorporate this, enhance my income, or get my reputation out there because I'm looking at both sides saddle too, and you would like to go into saddle fitting courses, then it's saddlefitforlife.com. So saddle fit and then the number 4 life, saddle fit for life. So that is the basic. Like in Germany, you actually have to take a course before you go to the horse show, not here in North America. But what you have to do here in North America is a driver license before you drive a car. And my dream is that every horse rider should have a driver license for saddle fitting. And we have right now the first couple modules for free, so you can get into it and see a little bit. Can I work online? It's totally self-paced. And again, it's anywhere from $50 courses to all the way to 15,000. So it's unbelievable. It's a career. so for income. But what I really like, what I get a lot of feedback is that we offer therapy saddle. And people say, a what? A therapy saddle. Imagine you massage a horse, right? Or you do something to the horse and you walk him before and you walk him after. See how he goes? 9 out of 10 people go, they don't really see it. You see it clear as, wow, what a difference. And you're kind of disappointed. They go, So what if you could give them a feel? Because that what we beginner or Olympian riders can instantly pick. What if I would say, you have, doesn't matter what saddle, English, Western, jumping, racing, who cares? What if you have a saddle, what you could put on it, so it says, okay, just walk away from me, walk towards it. All of a sudden, the horse is not leaning into the shoulder. He doesn't need to squish him forward. And then you say, get your saddle, walk away and go from me. It doesn't take them more than literally 20 steps. And I like that doing and walk because Dr. Tracy Turner, he's a professor, University of Wisconsin, Minnesota. He told me, watch the first 20 minutes. Don't wait until the horse is numb. And whatever you do, do and walk because the flight animal gets this massive endorphins when they trot to hide the pain and to show the lameness from the predator. Just walk. So you put that saddle on, they walk away. See, Audrey, I told you it doesn't last. He doesn't go again forward. You literally have to get that sizing saddle back on and say, go again. And now the penny dropped. It's fixed again because the saddle didn't hit the stop button. And people ask me all the time, what's the stop button? The stop button, let me see if I have it here somewhere. It is so simple. We use it in the Western language. You say, whoa, right? When we put this little skin right in front of the withers. When stallions fight, where do you bite? Right? The ladies who lived with horses, they bite in the lower leg where the nerve is, right? And then they go here. And then once they have them by the scruff, they give up. And they even bite the mare when she's in season, when they breed her. Right? So what happens to a kitten when you grab him by the scruff and pick him up? So if people listen to this is the one thing you really want to remember. This is the handbrake of the horse. It's very simple. End of the name, go 4 inches down, go to the base of the withers, go up. So you draw that down with red chalk on your horse. Very, very simple. Like an 8-year-old can do it. 5-year-old can do it. So then put your saddle on. Does your saddle hit that chalk? No? You're already 90% ahead. If it does hit the chalk, you need to ride for 20 minutes before the horse stops getting that pain because then that nerve is numb. So if you don't want to have the horse for the first 20 minutes going this way, and you want the horse to bring the back up to get the haunches underneath, stay off that trigger point. Full stop. So that's pretty much in the nutshell what I recommend. Everybody should know where that triangle is.
Yeah, it makes so much sense. But like you said, a lot of people, until you point it out to them, it's just not something that they think about.
Well, and again, what you and I do is taking time away from, I could make a saddle right now. You could treat a horse right now. But why do we sit here? Because we learn something from other people, what is so vital and so important. I forgot her name. But if we look at the nervous system, again, this is just for your viewers because you know all that, right? So when we know where they all run and we know how important it is. Did I write it in here? Anne Edmond is her name. Now this is, because I do that sometimes for Instagram, it's backwards. You won't be able to read it, but you can see this nerve here, right? When it's pinched between the shoulder and the rib cage.
Yeah, the brachial plexus.
Exactly, right? All of a sudden the horse is lame. Why is my horse lame in this saddle, but not in the other saddle? Because the horse can lift this thoracic sling and doesn't push down. So when I have experts, veterinarians, who spend, I don't know how much money these days to get an education and help horses, wouldn't I listen to them rather than somebody's opinion? Wouldn't I take their advice to stay away from the with a cup. That's what they call it. I like to call it the triangle of death because it sounds way more horrible and people pay attention than with a cup. Well, I hope that makes sense what I said today, and I would love, love, love. Maybe we can do a little bit educational thing each time we talk a little bit more about these trigger points.
Yeah, definitely. If you're interested in coming back and talking more with me, I would definitely be interested in kind of diving deeper, especially for some of our more advanced students to kind of,
Exactly.
there's so much, like you said, you could go on forever. So that's definitely something we can work towards maybe doing like a monthly thing.
I have found a handbook 10, 15 years ago, written in the 1923 by a German cavalry officer. And that handbook was passed on to all the soldiers. And you know what they had to do? They had to map the horse.
Hmm.
Mapping the horse to know how to put the blanket on. Now I'm 6'3", 225 pounds without saddle or clothes on. So I would never be allowed on a horse back then. So there was a height restriction and certain horses bred for the cavalry and the saddles were selected. But the main key point was how you fold your blanket, what you cover yourself up and how you kept sheltered. And all what they learned in 1923 is identify where these 14 trigger points are. And that's kind of what would be cool if we can talk each time. Keep it short, otherwise people go, oh, this is still talking. I know me who has a motor mouth here, but anyway, keep it short and teach them each time one of those trigger points. They can identify it,
I
see
think
it.
that would be fantastic. If you're up for it, I'm up for it. So yeah,
Hey,
that's great.
you have a huge reach, and I love to give your. When I read your bio and I read everything you went through and what you do, give me goosebumps. Still have goosebumps when I just
Oh,
think
thank
about it.
you.
No, I'm a big fan of yours.
And I've heard about you throughout the years too, especially from Sharon Cooper, who's a good friend. And yeah, I'm definitely very happy that we finally connected. And yeah, if you're ever on the east coast of Florida, you'll definitely have to come by and
Oh,
see
you better believe
my
it.
place. Yeah.
Yeah. We are horse. We not just horses anymore, but we have dogs. And I showed my wife this. Look what we can do with Bella. So, Audrey
Yeah,
was a pleasure.
definitely.
I
Yeah.
hope you don't have to do too much cutting.
Yeah. Yeah, well, thank you so much. This has been a great topic. I think the students are going to really enjoy everything that you've shared with us. And yeah, definitely we'll work towards getting you on some future episodes and we'll go a bit deeper. Is there anything else to end with that you want to share with the followers?
Um, there is an old saying in horses we call, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. And when you do what you and I do, you're going to hurt a lot of people. People say, I thought you want to help them. You hurt people who make a lot of money with selling a lot of, sorry, the language, bullshit. Okay? So we as humans get easily influenced and then do it to our horse with all this false media, AI, with all that stuff. Trust your horse. Feel your horse. Use your instinct. Now, will everybody be interested in saddle fitting? No. Only those horses who are thirsty will drink.
Yep, so
All right.
true.
All right.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for your time. And we'll definitely look forward to having you back on again soon.
Okay. Bye-bye.